So let's just start with, I think we kind of talked about it on the intro episode, but I'd love to just share a little bit more about it here, about kind of like how this was not necessarily something that I was super excited about. I really want to keep being transparent about that because I think it's helpful to hear my side of it too, and to hear like, this is definitely the most nervous I've ever been for a season, I think, for sure.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about that. I want to talk about how you feel about it. I want to talk about some of the things that they can get a flavor of or a feel for that we're diving into. So we'll talk about all the things. Hey guys, Patricia says your brain is amazing. I agree. Hey Jess, Shantae says it is a big deal. I probably listen to the Do the Work series episode with Sabs at least once a month. Oh my God, how fun is that? That makes me so happy. You were on fire in that episode. I remember you said something about like, if you ever make, what did you say? If you ever make us, I forget what you said, something like, if I ever just make 20K, take me out back and shoot me or something. And people were like, oh, damn. Hi, Michelle. Okay. So, I mean, obviously everyone knows this, but just like, tell us a little bit about you. I think that that's just always relevant to do when we're starting a new season. Tell us about yourself.
I am an online business coach and I live in Scotland. I'm married. I have a multiple 7-figure business. I was Lacey's first ever client to hit 7 figures, and we have been working together for about 6 years now. So a long time. Yeah, we also have a very close relationship, which I think is what contributed to some of the nervousness on Lacey's end. And for me, like that was a big dynamic change in a sense when it came to our coaching calls over the last few months, because I think we've been recording for about 2 months now. And I remember Lacey said, like, if we do this, are you actually going to let me coach you? And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, you coach me. And she's like, well, so it was definitely like a big change to kind of step back into the more like formal coach client type relationship. Just because I think our relationship has been so informal in a really great way. Like, I think that there's a lot of like curiosity about our relationship, and a lot of people who like, I get questions about it a lot. I'm sure you get questions about it a lot. But yeah, we're just very, very close friends. I mean, I've said this before, but Lacey to me is more family. I would never be like, this is my coach Lacey. I'm like, this is my best friend, maid of honor, love of my life, second mother Lacey. You know, so
Bonnie's grandma.
Exactly. Yeah. So, yeah,
so that's like kind of the perfect segue into why I think I was so nervous about this. It was 2 very specific reasons. One was I have to be honest, I'm quite worried about how our relationship will translate, because a lot of our dynamic is based on like banter, giving each other a hard time, disagreeing, kind of being semi-assholes to each other, but like it just works really, really well for us. And I'm not entirely sure how that's going to translate. So I feel like some of my clip-ins are like, I wouldn't coach every client like this. This is not necessarily how you should go hold all your clients. So it's just, that part is a little funny for me.
Yes, I think that is good, like context. And like, that's why I say like, we had such like an informal relationship, and like, it is much more like family or sisters. I remember, not to make you emotional, Lacey, but I remember one time I was at with Lacey for Christmas, and her dad, Lacey said, oh, this is my daughter. And Lacey's dad was like, no, sisters. Cause he was trying to like be nice to Lacey's age. And she's like, that's my daughter.
He was definitely trying to be like, oh, you're not that old.
But yeah, so it's a different type of dynamic. So I was thinking about that today. I was like, damn, like there's so many swear words in these episodes. Like, you're gonna have to put a little thing at the beginning. Like, if you have kids, please put headphones in.
I think, what did you say to me today? Oh, you said that I was bullying you.
Yeah. And I like whispered into the microphone. I was like, help, send help.
Right. So anyway, like that's what you're going to be working with this season, guys. I'm super sorry. But what I did come around to, and what I do think is going to be really helpful about it, is the idea that every dynamic and relationship and client is going to need something different from you. And so I think that it's really helpful to see that and have that permission that like, there's not a right way to coach. Like a lot of people ask me often if I'll ever do like a coaching certification or something. And like, that's pretty much like one of the singular reasons my answer is repeatedly no, because it's like, it fucking depends. Like I would never coach the vast majority of my clients the way I coach you and vice versa. Like, you know what I mean? So I think that it's just helpful to see that. And I think it's also helpful to see how things evolve over a long period of time where like, this is something I said in a clip in, but it's like, we have the foundational relationship where it supports a lot of the banter and disagreement and stuff. But if you don't have that with the client and you're trying, if you don't have that long-term foundation and you're trying to do that, it's probably going to fall flat, you know?
Like, don't listen to our episodes and be like, I should go call my clients assholes more times, you know, because that like maybe won't land. And also I think it's just a good reminder that like that relationship builds over time. So I think we met in person after like a year of coaching together, but I don't think I got your phone number until like after 2 years or a year and a half. So like,
and I think that was like, because you were aggressive about obtaining it.
Whatever, you know, but like, it takes time to build, right? So like, it's not like the first year we knew each other, I was at Lacey's house for Christmas. That was like maybe the third year. And like, Lacey will be at my house for Christmas next year, knock on wood, that will be like the 7th year, you know, like I'll go to Florida next week for Thanksgiving. I won't be at Lacey's house on Thanksgiving, but I might like, you know, break in, who knows, but like that takes time. But I think also like I have clients that I've been coaching for 4 years now, that it's a much more like sweet, nurturing relationship that you probably associate with Lacey. And then I also have other clients that it's much more of like a chill, informal relationship. So totally like every single person is different.
Exactly. Michelle said, curious to know how your coaching has changed over the years. Has it always been this way or did it start out more of that formalish coaching? I think it definitely started out way more of that. I think it took Sabs a really long time to open up. Like that's just you. I mean, you've evolved, but like you are not super quick to open up or warm right away. I mean, I think after the first 6 months ago, I wasn't even sure if she was going to resign. And I was almost like slightly surprised that she did, but
I think also just like, I feel like, I know it obviously took a little bit of time for us to warm, but I also feel like part of like how we clicked so well was where we both were like in our own experiences. So I think you were in the process of getting a divorce. I was also like in a brand new relationship, like very young girl, kind of like figuring things out. And like Lacey was just like such a wise mentor as someone who had been in, you know, long-term relationships and like had happy, loving parents and like friends and like a successful business. And like, she was just such a great like mentor to me. So I think that's also what created a bit of the big sister, little sister, mother-daughter dynamic there. And like, I was struggling with a lot of my own things. So I think that it was just kind of like a perfect storm, but definitely it wasn't overnight.
Yeah, totally. We always joke that Sabrina was basically like, what do we say?
Like a homeless rat.
A homeless rat on the side of the road when we started working together, and she kind of was.
Yeah, it's true.
But like, I also think that that's how we bonded. Like, I think that, you know, what I think a lot of people don't think about when they think about you, Sabs, that I just want to like say and like really give you credit for, it's probably going to make me emotional, but I'm going to try to hold it together today. It's like it's a pretty insane thing to be 23 and basically become a $1 million business owner in 9 months from I think it seems so cool to everyone, but I think think about your 23-year-old, think about the 23-year-old version of yourself to everyone listening. Like, imagine she just got given like the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. Like, there's so much to process there. There's so much responsibility. There's so much to wade through. There's like, I think you just cannot imagine the intensity of what that brings to someone's life. And so I feel like that just bonded us so much, kind of like being so in it with you for that, because that, I mean, that'll like completely change the trajectory of your life. I mean, it's like shaped everything about who you are to have that much success that young, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I feel like in ways that like changed both of our businesses, right? Because I think
Totally.
it also put like a huge spotlight on you as well. Like
100%.
there was a big spotlight on me. Like there was so much like fascination and curiosity and like what's going on. And like, I don't think either of us really knew what the fuck was going on. We were just like figuring it out together. But yeah, and then also like the stuff that like people didn't see is like there's a big history of like abuse, not Lacey abusing me, although like she does do that every once in a while, but like I've got like my own stuff, like my own like abuse and like history and like family stuff and trauma that like I need to process. Being in, my husband was my first ever boyfriend, right? So like trying to figure out like how do you have a healthy relationship, and like making up and breaking up a couple of times, and like there's all this like other stuff. And then like I feel like both of our businesses really changed really fast.
100%. And I think that, like you said too, it's like the spotlight feeling, I think it was really present. And I think just like being able to wade through that and like move through that to still have a really successful long-term business. You know, I've seen so many people who that's happened to in our industry kind of have those spotlight moments. And I think so many of those people end up kind of fading out over time and like aren't still around because it's just so much to handle and process and metabolize and maintain and all of that. So I think it's just like important to say that. I think that like, you know, obviously a good problem to have, but like was still like a very real,
totally
intense experience.
And I think like for both of us, like the blueprint wasn't there. Like you hadn't necessarily like coached a client to 7 figures before. And like, I don't think that is a requirement to coach a client to 7 figures. Like I think coaching skills are coaching skills. Who cares what the numbers are?
Exactly.
But it's like, you're also like dealing with that intensity for the first time of like, holy shit, my client just got 120 people in a group program. Like, holy shit, my client has all of these expenses. And I'm also just like, what the fuck is happening here? So, and like, I'm sure that now it's probably easier, like with coaching clients to 7 figures, because you're like, yeah, been there, done that. Totally. But back then, I think for both of us, it was a big what the fuck moment.
Well, it also just happened so fast, I think, too, is the thing. Like, I think it's one thing to slowly build to that over time. I think it's almost an entirely different thing to go literally 9 months, overnight, pretty much, you know, which like, I mean, the absolute blink of an eye, like I think that adds to it so much. Again, I think that it's what people crave in our space, but I think it's just like there's so many pieces to it that you don't always like assume come with it. Yes, Chelsea's so good. She said, just listen to Erica's money mindset episode yesterday. Right. But like, it's the same thing, right? We're like, obviously it's a great thing to have that Erica's like making great money and growing and all of this stuff, but there's so much shit that comes with that. And then again, add to it with Sab's experience of it being so fast. And I think it's like helpful for people to hear that because it's really normalizing, because I think that it's easy to think like that would be the perfect path. Yeah. Right. Like, oh, if I could just do that, then everything would work itself out. And it's like, not necessarily, it's just like a different set of problems. It's obviously, they're good ones in some ways, but they are there nonetheless. Right.
Totally. Yeah. And there's just a lot of like chaos and trying to like sift through that and just like make it work. So like, yes, it's a great problem to have that much money fall into your lap, but then also you don't like want to be a one-hit wonder. Like you want to keep going with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Elisa said, I would have loved to listen to your coaching sessions during that first up level. Oh my gosh. I would love to be able to go back and listen to those. You know, I can't even imagine how fun that would have been to be able to look back on. I wish we would have had that. Okay. So what are you most excited about? Would you say?
I don't want to say nothing.
Right. Cause that would be the wrong answer.
That would be the wrong answer. But I guess like I will first lead with what I'm nervous about. And then in that process, I'll come up with what I'm excited about.
Okay.
So I am very nervous actually about the episodes coming out, just because I think people are for sure going to think I'm a psychopath. Like, but it's true though. Like if you had to objectively listen to them, Like, you'd be like, the fuck is wrong? Like, I'm pretty sure my clients are going to listen to this and be like, I'm not sure like Sabrina's like well enough to coach me, you know, like something's off here. Like, I don't know. I
I
don't know,
don't think it's that bad, but okay.
but it's pretty bad, right? Like, it's pretty bad.
No.
Has Megan like listened to the episodes? Like, has like a third party listened?
I can ask our editor Leanne does listen.
Okay. I feel like we just need like an objective, like, yeah,
Okay.
that's like kind of weird, you know?
We'll
So
ask Leanne.
cool. So yeah,
Also, if anybody needs a podcast editor, Leanne's amazing. Anyway, shout
there you
out.
go. Yeah, but I'm very nervous for the episodes to come out. Not in like a bad way. Lacey, when we started working together and did this, she like made me like sign a paper saying like, if I feel nervous, I tell Lacey. If something's
Oh
wrong,
my
I'll
gosh,
tell
should I read
Lacey.
that?
If you can, if I feel uncomfortable, I'll tell Lacey and we'll stop recording. So I had to like sign that. So I remember the first episode I recorded, I went down to the kitchen and I told my husband, Paul, was like, what the fuck? And he's like, you have to tell Lacey. I'm like, no, shh. But yeah, I'm a bit nervous, not like in a bad way, like, oh, stop the buses, but just it's weird. Like, I'm nervous.
You did sign the thing, so you literally do have to tell me.
All right, I'm telling you now.
Okay, perfect, great. Okay, here's what it said. You guys, I made her sign this, and I also made Paul witness it because I needed there to be a second thing. Oh wait, hold on. Can you give us a mini resume of how things started and what the catalyst for that pop moment was? Totally. Okay. Here's what I made her sign. It says, I promise to not feel pressure to be transparent on something that makes me feel uncomfortable or unsafe. I promise to let Lacey know anytime I feel weirdness around the recordings, our relationship, or how supported I feel. I promise to not disappear or ghost if things feel tough. I promise to be willing to quit the podcast at any time if it no longer feels supportive. I promise to prioritize myself, my life, my business, and my mental health over the podcast. I promise to be transparent with Lacey always. And I promise to ensure I feel supported throughout the entire process, no matter what conversation I may have to do so.
That is like the most Lacey list ever. It's like, how many fucking feeling words can we stick in a sentence? Yeah.
And this was shortened, you guys. I had a longer version, but
I'm sure you did. I'm sure you did.
So funny.
Yeah.
To be fair, this might be one of the most vulnerable ways to show up on the internet. It like truly is. Like, I think that like I cannot give you enough credit. Like, I don't know if I would be brave enough to do it myself.
Yeah.
So I am very, very grateful to you. Everyone's curious why you think you sound like a psychopath.
I mean, you'll find out in like a couple days.
Yeah. What's your answer to that? Like,
well, I think the way I communicate with Lacey is very different. Like, I did not filter myself for the podcast.
Yeah.
Like there was no point where I told Lacey to stop recording. There was one time where Lacey stopped recording because she said a team member's name. And then she like restarted it, but that's because she had a question. I didn't ask her to stop. So yeah, it's very unfiltered. It's also just very honest and like showing people like the behind the scenes and how I think and what I'm struggling with. And, I know that like literally has been done before, obviously, but I think it's very different, like at a multiple 7-figure level where there's like an existing business and like lots of clients and lots of brand awareness. Because I feel like if I had done this 6 years ago, in some sense, it would have been like fun, exciting, like this thing I did 6 years ago. So cute. Oh my gosh. That's not to minimize anyone's experience with literally, just to be clear.
Yeah.
No, I get you. Right now it feels like there's like more to lose. Like there's not as much of like an upside for me necessarily. Like I remember Paul was like, oh, maybe you'll get some clients out of this. I'm like, I really don't think so. Like maybe, but like, that's not really what I'm doing it for,
Like, I sound like a psychopath. Probably not. No, I'm kidding.
Like that's not like there's no, yeah. So it just feels like more to lose. And like, I also just know that like the internet can be judgy. So like, I'm sure some people will listen to this and be like, see, Sabrina's a freak, just because that's how people are, right? Like there's always going to be people who say some sort of shit. So yeah.
What I think is interesting and what I'm like so curious to see what people have to say about it. Everybody loves this and they appreciate you. The thing that I think is interesting and so curious to hear what people's take is, but like, I think that there is a perception that there must be something we're talking about that's like so crazy and like different and like stuff people wouldn't know. And it's like, mostly we're like fighting about how long the length of your program should be.
Yeah.
And like, I'm telling you to journal. Like, I think that there's this way where it's like so basic, it might almost, like be disappointing to people in some way, but I'm like so excited for that because I'm like, this is what people need to hear. Like, we are not like doing all this crazy shit or like sharing all these secrets and all these like codes and like what, like, we're just like making a marketing plan. Like, you know what I mean?
But I think that's also like the cool thing about like working with Lacey's. I feel like sometimes people get really disappointed when they hire a coach because like the coach taught them this one cookie cutter strategy and then they can't apply it to their business or it doesn't work. And like Lacey's not saying like, here's how you structure a sales call. Like, here's how you do a launch. Like I have my own 7-step sales call. I have my own launch life cycle. Like I have my own mindset processes. Like I've got my own stuff. She just keeps pointing me back to what works for me instead of like trying to turn me into a mini Lacey. I definitely am like way too weird to be a mini Lacey, not emotional enough.
Would not work.
I mean, I can definitely like put that face on, you know, like I feel like of any of your clients, I could probably mimic you the best just because I know you so well. You would think I'm mocking you, but I'm actually just, you know, in your brain. But, you know, that's not necessarily my natural habitat.
Yeah. Not necessarily. Michelle said, wait, this isn't a podcast, y'all doing witch spells on the internet. I mean, you know, we could try. No, I'm kidding. But like, yeah, I think it's so true though. Like, I feel like that's what people must think. And I think that it's like so nice to be like, no.
Yeah, there's not some like 17-step super secret strategy. It's like sell some shit, market some shit, do your mindset work, like be authentic, like post, don't be a shit leader, like really basic stuff. It's just that you might have to do it more at scale, right? So something we'll talk about in the podcast that you'll hear is like, I put a big emphasis on content. So if you've been following me the last couple of months, you've maybe seen I've like put more focus on that, but it's not necessarily Lacey's like, you must do this magical content strategy. It's more just like, how can we be more authentic? Like, how can we do more of this? How can we get team support? How can we be consistent? And then like, I'm the one who's still tapping into my own magic and figuring that out.
Which is the whole point. I think that would be really helpful for people to see that it's not like the reason you've grown is because you tap into your own magic. It's not because like you've found the right way to say something or whatever, you know?
Right. Like I don't have a private coaching business based on like a revenue share with like 25 clients. Like my business is completely different, but Lacey is still able to be my coach because it's not about having a mini version of Lacey's business.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. Shari, she said getting the disappointed about the simplicity would be such a gift. Like that is like really what I hope. It's so funny because I wrote a bunch of promo posts about it and like, oh, let me just answer your question before it disappears. We're on session 8. So we're like,
are we? I feel like it's flying by.
2.5 months in.
Okay.
2 months. Yeah. Session 8, we recorded this morning.
Okay.
Oh shit, what was I saying? Oh, when I wrote some of the promo posts initially for this, I wrote like about like how like you're gonna see that it's not a secret and like it's like not a like thing. And I wrote a lot about that. And Megan like lovingly was like, listen, this is good, but you say this like 17 times and it's not necessarily exciting me the most to listen. So like maybe add a little more context. But my point in saying that is like, that's what I was so excited about for this season is to be like, you're probably going to hear this and be like, that's fucking it. But like, if that's the takeaway, that would be the best thing that could have happened from this season. Because I think if not, it really, and I think so much of our industry marketing at this point is like, there is a fucking secret, you know?
Yeah. And I think that's also like why people don't scale is they keep looking for the secret instead of just doing the work over and over, better and better. So I think
Lisa just gave your perfect, it disappeared on my screen, but you got to pull it up.
So OMG, already love this. Sab's 3-step success system: 1, sell; 2, put out content; 3, don't be a shit leader.
Pretty much it.
Yeah.
Shantae is so excited. This is all magic and it's such a gift for us to be able to witness. I was so happy about that. Yeah, so good. I'm glad you guys are loving the simplicity because like, that is what we're after. Yeah, Megan is always coming in with the real talk. She's like, this was great, but also no. Thanks, Megan. Okay, Patricia said, why did you feel called to do it and why now?
Well, as y'all know, I won the golden ticket back in January, which basically means I have a permanent spot in Lacey's coaching business, which I already have as her, first non-born child. So I'm not really worried about Lacey being like, peace out. So I have a second spot that I can either sell or lease. So I started the leasing process and that got leased to Lindsay. Which there was a live stream about that a couple of months ago, which you can search in the group, just NFT Lindsay, you'll find it. And as we were going through that process, Lacey said, or her team said like, oh, like, do we want to connect this to the podcast where someone could lease the golden ticket and be on the podcast? And so the idea there being that kill two birds with one stone, then Lacey doesn't need a second client, because then that's two separate clients, right? Like one for the podcast and one for the golden ticket. And, Lacey just had a baby. So that seems like a lot, because I waited a long time to lease it. Like I could have leased it back in February, March, but I waited just because you were about to give birth and I just didn't think you need anything else on your plate. So then we were getting these really great applications, but I feel like we both agreed that maybe not everybody was a great fit for the podcast, not because it wouldn't be interesting, but just because it had kind of been done before already.
Yeah. Right. Cause you got to remember we were 6 seasons in at this point. So we've explored a lot of different angles.
Right. So, I saw Lacey kind of going back and forth with that a lot, where she was like, oh, like I really want this person, but I'm not sure about if they should be on the podcast, which the person she really wanted was Lindsay. So I submitted a podcast application because I was like, I can fix this. I will be on the podcast and she doesn't need a second client. And then I got like a text from her, like, is this for real? What the fuck? Like something along those lines. Like, are you trolling me? Are you mocking me?
I think it was like, are you trolling me? Yeah.
Yeah. But I wasn't, because like, obviously initially the desire was, okay, well, if I'm on the podcast, then like Lacey can still pick Lindsay and like, it's all Gucci. But then also I think as the more I thought about it, I was like, well, this actually like might be really cool. It's like a good kick in the pants. Like none of Lacey's other 7-figure clients have ever done this before, although I'm sure I've inspired all of them to go do it and follow my footsteps. But yeah, so I was just, the more I thought about it, the more I liked the idea. And at first Lacey was very against it. She was very much like, no, just because she thought it would really change our dynamic. And I would get like weird and like moody and ghost her and not talk to her because I've never done that before.
Because that is a thing. Yes. Which like, again, that's also helpful to say like that this is stuff that happens. I mean, it's not like we've ever not coached together, but like she will just go dark sometimes and like do a little thing. Yeah.
Aries, Cancer moon, what can I say? But yeah, so we talked about it, and the more we talked about it, the more we liked it. And Lacey asked me, she was like, okay, well, like I can see the upside for me, but like, what's the upside for you? And so, as I said, like, obviously this feels very vulnerable, but I think it's a good kick in the pants.
It really has been.
And yeah, I think it's just been fun. I think it's fun for us to kind of like connect in this new way. And also Lacey and I have always done a lot of firsts together. So I wasn't your first partnership client, but I think I was maybe in like the second round or something. Like, we've done that together. We did the NFT together. Like we've done a bunch of like live streams and things like that together. So it just feels like kind of our thing to do, weird shit together. Lacey was at IE Live. Like, yeah, I just felt like it just made sense for our relationship.
It also made sense for you timing wise. Like I remember that's something we talked about too, was like, one thing we talk about on the podcast is Sabs is entering a season of thinking about having a baby soon. And like knowing that probably isn't and wouldn't have been the time we would have wanted to record, and that wouldn't have been an upside for you really. And so it kind of felt like I remember when I was waffling, you were kind of like, it's now or never, either you say yes now or the offer disappears kind of thing. And it was like, this just really is like the only moment that makes sense right now.
Yeah. And I think that's also just been like kind of good, like motivation or star during the podcast is just like getting the business ready for baby. And like, what does that look like from a sales perspective, from marketing, from systems, leadership team, all of that.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, we definitely wouldn't want to do this if I'm like 2 months pregnant or something.
Right. Exactly. I missed some of y'all's stuff, but I know Shari had said like she was excited about the permission of listening to someone coach so differently with different people. And like, I'm super happy to hear that, because that is for sure true for me. I mean, obviously I always have like some measure of like me in all of it, but I think that, that's such like a lost art in our space to a certain extent, is that like, I believe that you should, adjust to and coach the person in front of you, and it not be like, that vibe of like, this is who I am and this is how it is and this is what it is. Like, I mean, that's fine, but you're going to have this whole subgroup of people that don't get great results from you then, because they don't respond well to that. Like, I know that a lot of my clients would not respond super well to like the disagreements. Like, so that's something you'll hear in the podcast, Sabs and I disagree a lot. Often it's our thing. And it's also how she processes, like the way Sabrina processes to play devil's advocate and to always pick the other side. So pretty reliably, if I pick one side, she's always going to initially pick the other.
Yep.
Like, I don't think it's happened yet this season, but if you ever hear her agree with me right off the bat, I will be floored. Like, it's just not how we roll. But like some of my other clients, if we had that dynamic, that would feel super uncomfortable to them, like that wouldn't, that's just not how they process. So anyway, like, I think it's just important to say that.
Definitely. Yeah.
Jess had asked when the first episode comes out, November 16th. Yeah.
Next week.
Yeah.
I think that's Wednesday, next Wednesday.
Yes. Maybe do we release them on Wednesdays or Tuesdays? It's Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. I can't remember. Okay. I should know this, but I'm pretty sure. I know Megan said to me it was the 16th, but like.
That's a Wednesday.
Yeah. Okay. Then I'm pretty sure it's because Megan never gets anything wrong. I often do. Megan does not.
Nice.
So yeah, I think let's just say a little bit about what we've talked about so far this season to just give people like a little taste. Oh, okay, good. Kristen says it is. Everybody's saying Wednesday. I'm an idiot. Thank you guys. I appreciate you.
I have done a lot. We've done a lot of back and forth around my coaching program, the accelerator. So we've done a lot of, I think we like fought for like 4 episodes in a row on that one, probably.
Yeah.
So we did a lot on that. We've done a ton on content and marketing strategy. We have done a little bit on mindset, and Lacey's still kind of pushing me a bit there. So we'll probably stretch into that a little bit more. Yeah, I feel like content and product suite has been like 2 of the big things this season.
Yeah, totally. And I think, I don't want to like give too much away, but I almost think like you stepping into like a new identity even has been like a piece of it, which I think is like exciting to get to hear, is that like, even far along in our business journey, we always have to kind of like revisit that. And like, we talk a lot about like this version of this identity that you used to have and what it looks like to step back into a new version of that. And I think that that's just really permission giving and helpful to hear, because I do think that there's such a mentality of like, once you're at this level, everything's set. And I think it's more like you still have to commit, you still have to buy in, you still have to do all the things, right? Just said that Wednesdays. Okay, good. Shari, yes, always the question. Oh yay, Alessia is loving your CEO confession. She's crushing CEO confessions.
Those are fun.
I'm obsessed. I think you were doing such a good, I was just like giving you so much credit for that this morning. I think you were doing such a good job with that.
Thank you, Alessia. Yeah, those have been really fun.
We're going to send one out so everybody can get a taste, but how can they get on CEO confessions?
I will drop a link into the chat.
Okay.
So that people can subscribe and get CEO confessions. The only secret I will give you, though, is you don't get them if you haven't engaged with us in 60 days. So if you stop opening the emails, you'll stop receiving them, just because we're trying to keep our email deliverability like super perfect. So that's just a secret. But yeah.
But you want to open them because they're great.
Right. So if you open them every week, you'll keep getting them.
Yeah, they're really good. But I think it's also, I feel like you're in a season of this. Like, I feel like, right. Like with being on the podcast, with doing CEO confessions, like, I feel like you're in a season of like sharing
Totally.
more realness, right?
Totally. Yeah.
Well,
Lots of
yay.
podcast stuff, lots of case studies, just kind of pulling back the curtain in many different platforms.
And I think for a while you really like hid a little bit, right? Or like retracted a little bit.
For sure.
And it's just like cool to see that like shifting. And I'm like glad that we get to record that. But again, also like helpful to be like witnessing that like you can go through different seasons in your business. Like you had a season where you really needed to focus on personal more. And so you pulled back a little bit, and like for all intents and purposes, that's fine. And now you have a season where you're gonna step back out a little bit. And like, I think it's just helpful for people to know that like those things happen over the long term. It's how you sustain a business long term, right?
Yeah. And I feel like that's one of those things that I sometimes notice, with clients is like sometimes a client will unexpectedly have like a life thing during their initial contract period. And then some people will like pull back and they'll be like, oh, I need to go deal with this thing and then I can revisit my business. Whereas like, I've never done that with you. Like I've always been in the business regardless, like how I show up in the business might be differently, but like I've always been committed to the business. And I also think that's like why I'm still here 6.5, 7 years later, whatever it is. So I think it's also just like a good reminder that like stuff can be going on and like you can still be invested and committed.
Well, I think sometimes when we have the life stuff is actually when we need the most support in business, because we can only hold so much, right? And it's like, that's when we need someone kind of like holding our business with us or processing some of the life stuff or whatever. And when we like tap out of all that support because we're not like in a season to sprint, it makes no sense, because it almost tells your brain that like support is only for when you can do it perfect and sprint at things. And it's like the exact opposite.
100%.
Yeah. So interesting. Oh, some other things that we also talk about this season, which I think we do talk about it a lot, but I just think it'll be helpful to hear, is like a lot of your annoyance with the coaching industry.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yep, that is for sure.
Yeah, which I think will be helpful for people to hear too, because I think like sometimes it's easy, I think in an industry like this to feel like we're the only one feeling a certain way. But when you hear, like, we're privy to like a lot of conversations with clients and things like that, so we kind of know the general vibe. But I think when other people can hear that, bless you.
Thank you.
When other people can hear that, like, people they're looking up to feel the same way, I think that's really helpful in normalizing too, to be like, oh, some of this shit is kind of fucked up, and like we all just need to be more honest about it.
Yeah, totally.
Can't second that enough. Very permission giving. You just said a mouthful, Sabrina. Yes. So true. And like, so helpful, I think, to also, this is like the other value I think people are going to get from this season, is to see the value in staying with your coach long term. I don't know if it came out yet, but I recorded a client lesson recently that was basically like, when you're jumping from coach to coach, like by all means, like, get a new coach if it really feels not aligned, but ultimately all you're doing is paying someone new to learn your business.
Totally.
Like, right, you're like paying this person to spend 6 months learning your business, and just when they're probably getting the feel for you and your business and your mindset stuff and whatever, then you go pay someone else to learn your business. And again, it's not like to say you can never leave a coach if it's not the right fit, but I think what you'll hear this season is we just have so much context and backstory. It just makes it so much easier to move through things, because Sabrina's not like educating me on her business. Yeah.
Right. I think the other thing there is I feel like it's kind of become fucked where we think that like up leveling equals paying someone else more money. And like, whenever I want to up level, I need to go hire a more expensive coach and I need to go make this big investment. But it's like, actually up leveling is like when you make a bigger internal investment, like when you stretch more, like when you put out more content, when you scale, when you step into being a leader, like it's the
what you're doing on the podcast isn't up level, but has nothing to do with money.
Totally. It's like the internal investment that creates the up level. And I think that's where people get disappointed. It's like, but I paid this coach $40,000 for 6 months. And it's like, okay, idiot. Like, I'm surprised that you didn't up level. But yeah, it's just, it's weird that people think that. And I think this is a good reminder that like, it's not about jumping to like a better person, because like, that's not really the point. And then I think it's also so weird that now people are like, don't use your coaching calls, but like, I use all my coaching sessions, like
I can't with that one.
yeah, like I talk to Lacey every single day asking questions, so it's just, I think we've created a lot of messed up stories about like what up leveling looks like, or like what being a successful leader looks like.
Yes. Yeah. Elisa said, holy F yes to that. Jess said, so many people think that like the up level is okay. Who is my next coach, which is so wild. I so agree. It's like, it's so, I can't with that. And I really cannot with the
Totally.
don't use your calls, because it's basically like, we've literally tried to distill business down to this idea that like, if I can find the right person and pay them enough money, then everything that I want will happen. Like that, like that's craziness, right?
Yeah. And like something I said earlier on, I don't know if it was on, I think it was on the podcast this morning. Actually, it wasn't on today's live stream, but like something I've been dealing with this year is I've received a lot of new clients who did work with coaches that kind of educated them in that. And then now they're, coming to me like at 20K months, but essentially we're like kind of starting from zero because there's zero business foundation, because that was never actually taught to them. So I think like, just because you pay someone more money doesn't also actually mean that you're learning anything. And I feel like those are actually the people who struggle the most, because they're so focused on paying someone money and not enough focused on like building their own business.
And if you're paying someone more and more and more money, 20K months aren't 20K months at a certain point either. Like that's the other thing, right? Like, it's like, that's great. But if you're paying your coach 10K a month for that, like what,
right?
Like, what's the point?
Yeah, totally.
It's learning the client's business, yes, and also the relationship building. It takes people longer to open up, and for us coaches to learn their patterns. Exactly that. Like I said, it's not like Sabrina and I like hit our stride in the first 6 months of working together. It took time and like taken a long time to build the relationship we have, where I can give her a reflection and she can take it pretty quickly and like, you know what I mean? And like really move through things fast. But like, it's only because of that. It's not because like I happen to be the perfect coach, or like it has nothing to do with that.
Right. It's because like you've given me that reflection 50 times. So I'm like, oh yeah, duh.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's like, I think what creates speed. Because I do think we are pretty speedy in this podcast. Like, I feel like I was pretty quick right away to take up like CEO confessions and content and like making big changes. And I feel like I mean, we fought a lot, like we still are fighting and disagreeing quite a bit, but I think that like implementation wise, it's been quick for me to go do that, because we're not having to like explain my business or build my business from scratch. Like we put that work in.
Exactly. There, even in one of the episodes, Sabs actually did a clip in for everybody to explain like her offer suite, because we don't have to talk about that anymore because we just know it. So like you're not hearing that. So we had to like be mindful of like adding that.
Right. I mean, if we've been together for 6 years, that's like what, like 250 coaching calls?
Wild.
I don't even know how many, but like it's a lot.
From a whole perspective, one of the things you always remind us is that coaching sessions are just part of the container, aka not by Basecamp. I'm curious whether you can speak to whether the Basecamp dynamic looks different with you working together so long term. Does that make sense? Yeah, I feel like you've gone on and off with using Basecamp more or less in different seasons.
Yeah. So I hadn't used Basecamp in about 2 years until 2.5 years until we did the podcast. So that was definitely a big change. But I feel like now I'm in there a couple of times every week. And I remember after we recorded the first session and I put stuff in Basecamp, Lacey was like, oh my God, so cute. So it was definitely like a big change. But I'm not necessarily advocating that that is the right way to do things by any means. I think it's a product of like our dynamic, which as we said at the beginning, prior to the podcast, was like very informal, much more like friendship, family first, kind of coaching client relationship second. Like I fully trust that if Lacey ever felt like our coaching relationship was affecting our friendship, that she would like kind of walk us out of that. Not that I ever think that would happen. We've been doing this for so long. I feel like, we're assholes to each other, but like we also have like good, healthy boundaries and respect for each other. But yeah, I'm confident that with every other client, you're in Basecamp with them, like literally every single one.
Yeah, totally. I mean, I think that And also when Sabs is saying she didn't use Basecamp, she's not saying she didn't reach out between sessions. She's just saying
Right.
like, she didn't use like the formal process of like, here is a document, here is
Right.
this. She would just like shoot me it via email or whatever, which like typically I would like give someone a hard time about, but I'm just used to this one and we've been doing it for a long time. So we let her slide on that. But it doesn't mean don't get support. Like getting support in between is like very important and is like very
I've always
opinion.
talked to Lacey every day.
Like, my opinion is crucial, right? Like the support in between is the thing.
I think if anything, like it's more important than the calls.
Yeah.
And like the calls are deeply important. Like no one should be underestimating the importance of the calls. But I think that like something I tell my clients is like, don't hold on to your question for a whole week.
Exactly.
Right. Like imagine if you had 3 questions every week and over the course of a year, like that's 150 questions that could have been answered same day, but instead you wait a week to get those answered. Like that just slows you down. If there's something that like we're talking about like over text and like we can't figure it out, like we'll just save it for the session to go deeper into it. But that's like kind of rare, especially at this point in our relationship where we do know each other so well.
Yeah.
Totally. Yeah. Jess says that the support in between makes the calls quicker and more productive. 100%.
Right. And that's exactly it. Like for me, the way I view it is like in between support is like quick answers, quick reviews, quick feedback, like stuff that like is just, you need to move forward, or it's for when big things happen. Like I just had a big thing happen. I'm not going to save it for a call, but like, then on calls, you're not just like checking a box of like 52 questions, because that's not really a coaching call, right? And you're like actually able to dive in. And I think that's what's super important about that support. And what I truly see is the clients who use that just get better results. And it's because they're all in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely. I see the same with my clients as well. It's the clients who ask them those questions in between calls who get the big results.
Yeah. Because you're like, I'm here for, like Shari said, like the whole container. I'm not just here for pieces of the container, because, you know, then it's easier to get pieces of results, right?
Totally.
So good. Oh, I'm so excited for this. Okay. I don't know if we have anything else. Anything else you want to like say or share that feels important? Besides, everyone should listen.
I don't think so. They can listen to my podcast too. It sounds like both our podcasts are going to be dropping on Wednesdays. So that's spicy.
Yes. Tell them about yours.
I have one. It exists. You should listen to it. It's so fun. So spice.
What's it called?
The Sabrina Philipp podcast.
We're working on Sabrina actually selling. So
sales balls coming soon.
There we go. But yeah, so yours is coming out Wednesday. Ours is coming out Wednesday. You should listen to both. They're obviously very different films.
Yes.
In terms of structure, but like very valuable. And we're just really excited. Like, I think that this is just going to be super interesting, and I can't wait to hear y'all's feedback. I hope you give us your honest feedback. If you think Sabrina's a psychopath, you can tell us. If you think I'm a shit coach, you can tell us, but mostly we don't care because it works for us. And yeah, like, I think just hopefully it gives a ton of value and permission and perspective that I think is missing. Like, I want to give you credit, because I think that this is the content that literally no one is doing in our space, that no one has done, that no one's like willing to do, I think would be a good way to say it. So that's really cool. Oh, Jess is using your live stream tips this week.
Good. I'm glad.
So good.
Let me know how those go.
Okay, perfect. Well, I love you. I'm so appreciative of you. If you guys are excited, make sure to go show Sab some love. I think this is, like we were talking about earlier, wildly vulnerable. And I'm so, so grateful to you for doing it with us.
I'm excited. Can't wait.
We love you guys. I love you. I'm so proud of you. I'm so excited. And we'll see y'all, or you'll hear us next week.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.